Last week, the Texas House of Representatives approved legislation to force pregnant women to have an ultrasound before they could have an abortion. The Republican state representative who authored the bill, a man named Sid Miller, said, "We want to make sure they're fully informed, that they understand the medical consequences, the psychological consequences, and everything involved in the procedure," end quote. But opponents of the bill argue the measure will merely make women who are already in a difficult situation delay the procedure to organize the ultrasound and feel worse. The bill was the first major item passed by the Texas State House this year and was described as an emergency priority by Republican Governor Rick Perry. I guess the state facing a massive budget deficit takes a back seat to women's reproductive rights. Here to offer their takes on the issue, Heather Sermo of 440 Public Relations firm, and Sam Bennett, president of the Women's Campaign Forum. Heather, Sam, welcome.
Pleasure. Thanks for having us.
Great to have you both here. Sam, this isn't just jelly on the belly that the government is forcing women to experience in Texas if this passes, is it?
And this is absolutely ridiculous. We had South Dakota, we had Georgia, we had H.R. 3 in U.S. Congress, and now we have this. Rick Perry, I used to live in Matagorda Bay, Texas. Rick Perry, Governor Rick Perry, should be ashamed of himself. He's got a $27 billion deficit, Tom, and this is what he considers an emergency, to take women's rights and put them on the cutting room floor. It's absolutely inexcusable.
It's an emergency because babies' lives are at stake, and it's destroying women as well.
Please,
it's not good for women. It's not good for babies. It's something that is, very urgent.
If I could, Tom.
The procedure.
Well, if I could. Roe versus Wade was passed because women were dying like flies, Heather. Dying like flies. And so what was happening, if you didn't give them an opportunity to have safe and legal abortions, they took matters into their own hands. Roe versus Wade was passed to protect women in this nation. And you know what really upsets me about this? This is not, Heather, about people with real values at stake. This is political pandering by the far extreme right of the Republican Party. And women in America need to stand up and protest this. This is ridiculous.
Well, Heather, feel free to respond to that. And aren't you, as a conservative, a little uncomfortable about this massive expansion of government inserting itself into the lives of people?
I think I am very much in support of women having full knowledge of what they're getting into. Abortion is not just getting rid of a blob of tissue, and that's what Sam's talking. That's what Sam's afraid of.
That is not what I'm saying. Absolutely not what I'm saying.
Oh, okay. So Roe v. Wade. The reason that Roe v. Wade was decided the way it was is because it was inconclusive as to when human life began. And now, as we have technology showing that human life does begin at conception, people like Sam are very squeamish about getting into a debate about that.
Stop. Don't put words in my mouth.
And last time we were on this show,
not put words in my mouth.
Last time we were on the show, she said it would be to devolve the issue if we talked about when life begins.
Last time I was over here, Heather. That's Tom, and I'm telling you right now, you're putting words in my mouth. I never said those things. The bottom line is, if you had Roe versus Wade was passed because women were dropping like flies, because if you don't give them access, Heather, to legal and safe abortions, they're going to do it anyway.
That's not true, Sam. I have more confidence.
Absolutely true.
No, I have more confidence. If life begins at the moment of conception, at the fertilization of the egg, is that what you're suggesting?
I am suggesting that. I'm suggesting that because that's what science shows.
Should we be going to the in vitro fertilization clinics that are pouring thousands, if not tens or hundreds of thousands of fertilized eggs literally down the drains of sinks every year?
And they're committing murder every day.
And charge them with murder?
Right. Why not?
Tom, I am actually against putting fertilized eggs on ice. I do think that you should just take the amount of eggs that you plan to use and use all of those. I think it's a mistake for us to do that. I don't want to have that discussion right now. We can come back on and have that discussion.
But if you believe that life begins at conception, then there's a bunch of living things in these frozen nitrogen tubes, and after the woman gets pregnant, they take the rest of them and they pour them down the sink.
I'm being consistent. I'm saying that we shouldn't have those frozen embryos on ice.
So you think we should not have IVF?
No, I'm saying we can have IVF, but don't freeze any embryos unless you're going to use them. Take the eggs that you plan to use and use them. You cannot dispose of them. We have this strange thing called embryo adoption, which I'm saying we got ourselves into that situation. But what I still want to go back to is that we weren't able to have this discussion before. Technology is on the side of the pro-lifer stance.
All right,
that
my
life
apologies.
begins at
Heather, I've
conception.
listened long enough. I gave you a lot of rope here. The bottom line is we're here today because Governor Rick Perry of Texas has said taking away the rights of women is more important than taking care of the $27 billion deficit. This country elected...
taking away the rights of women, giving them all the information they need to make a good decision? Why are you against that?
These individuals were elected across this country in state legislatures and in U.S. Congress to fix the economy. And what have they been doing? They did H.R. 3, South Dakota, Georgia. What is South Dakota? South Dakota was so that you could, in premeditated murder, doctors and nurses. What was Georgia? It was absolutely true. Georgia, what was that all about? That was if a woman couldn't prove she had a natural miscarriage, that she was going to be accused of having a felony. Theoretically, she could face the death penalty. And now in this state, in Texas, we have this one. What on earth is going on, Heather?
It is considered
this
to be
is ridiculous.
An emergency because life is at stake.
No,
and women's
these people,
emotional as well as physical health.
You know, this is a perfect reason why we need more women in elected office in this country. We're ranked 86.
I'm a woman. If I were elected, I would still
we are
have these
ranked
views.
86 in the world in the number of women in elected office, all right? And U.S. Congress has only 17, barely 17%. It reminds me of the health care debate where we had a man stood up and said that pregnancy was a pre-existing condition. We need more women in elected office.
You're still perpetuating this myth that women are all pro-abortion. That's not true. That's not true. As more information becomes available, you see, and you're afraid to say this, that public opinion shows that women are becoming more pro-life. Women are realizing what's going on inside.
If I may just jump in here, shouldn't Rick Perry be putting a little more emphasis on children who are already born?
Thank you.
I mean, I ran a community for abused kids for 5 years, and I've been on the board for 31 years. And I'm telling you, there's a lot of kids out there who are living lives that are hellish in this country, and people like Rick Perry want to cut funding for them. In fact, the Republicans at the federal level right now are making a very serious effort to cut funding for programs like the one I'm on the board of. These people don't seem to give a damn about children once they're born, but they want to protect them when they're only 8 cells big.
You're talking about funding. This bill right here in Texas
has nothing to do with
funding. This bill in Texas has nothing to do with funding. This bill in Texas has everything to do with giving women all the information they need.
Heather, the natural consequence of this legislation that you're supporting, the Georgia legislation, the South Dakota legislation, the Texas legislation, H.R. 3, is exactly what Tom said. When I was a married mother with 2 children, I made an agonizing decision, but an important one, to terminate a pregnancy. Why did I do that? Because that child would not have been brought into a loving home. I now have 3 children who are all desired, who are all wanted. That was an agonizing decision. 81% of Americans, Heather, believe that we as individuals should be making our own important life decisions like that, not the government. What you're supporting is government intervention in the most personal and intimate parts of our life. Yes, you are.
No, what I am supporting is full information.
No.
Why are you so afraid of women finding out what's going on inside?
How about this?
Why are you so afraid of that?
My best friend was Catholic. Her name was Anne Marie. She had a pregnancy, Heather. She was told by the doctor that that fetus was going to die the minute it was born and that her life was in danger. She was a Catholic. This law that you support would make her listen to the sonogram, would make her listen to the fetal heartbeat, a woman who is already traumatized and already made a very difficult, heartbreaking decision. That's what this law would do, Heather. It is absolutely unacceptable.
I have to just let Heather, last sentence, and I have to wrap this. I'm sorry, Heather.
Sir, I just want to say there's no easy solution. I am not saying that I know having an unexpected pregnancy, having a problematic pregnancy is hard to deal with. But there's no easy solution. Abortion is not an easy solution. And what this bill and others is trying to do is give women full information to make a wise decision. It's traumatic anyway, but they shouldn't be forced to make a decision.
Sam,
thank you so much, Tom.
Here with us.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you very much.